Welcome to Conversation 2019.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to join the last session before lunch. Thank you guys for joining us today. So we are very lucky to have three experts. And before digging into the topic on how to build strong relationship and grow your business through messaging, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves and your company, of course. Jendrik, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, happy to meet you. I'm Jendrik. I'm one of the co-founders from Spectrum. We are a messaging platform, so we actually allow you to build conversations on messaging platforms. And I'm one of the co-founders actually leading product development there. So yeah, and we work with Mark.
Yeah, so my name is Mark. I'm the online marketing director for Happy Socks. The company started in 2008. Like two guys had a good idea of starting a sock business because we're headquartered in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. And in Sweden, it's whenever you visit friends, you take off your shoes and you need to show off good socks. You want to make a statement, and the Swedes are very about outer appearance, so there's definitely a market for that. And they thought, you know what, let's make cool socks. Let's make socks cool again. So they trademarked the term Happy Socks globally and immediately went all in. So they bought 60K socks from a producer in Turkey. And thought, okay, we'll sell it online and live on Bali, surf, and get rich. That's not that easy, especially in 2008, because online, I mean, you could grow fast, but it wasn't as big as it is right now. So they had to go through the wholesale channel. So they started selling socks to department stores and resellers, etc. And then later on, like online was in the background, but it wasn't a big channel for them. So in 2012, we started really to invest more time and money in online, and from that moment it started to grow. And we're a pure multi-channel player, I would say. So we have a lot of department stores, we have our own retail. So whoever is from Paris, if you're in Le Marais, there's close to the Uniqlo store. There's a Happy Socks store, very small, but hopefully you'll find it. And online has a big share. Throughout the years, we've been growing double digits. We don't have a massive investment behind us, so it's all profitable. No hockey stick growth, but all very linear, but all high double digit. Yep.
And before I introduce myself, actually, can we acknowledge the socks that we have today? So I see you made a big effort because obviously
I have to.
You have an Happy Socks. I don't know if we can see it on the screen with the camera. I made a big effort as well today. I have dots. I can see a classic Adidas sock.
Yeah.
No socks on that side. So I'm Ricardo. I work at Facebook. I'm responsible for messaging and emerging platforms on the business marketing side. So my role is to really help brands find their voice through these platforms and actually voice over from the Facebook standpoint all the value that messaging and conversation is bringing to brands and how it's becoming a critical sort of channel for businesses. So we're actually in a very interesting moment right now because a conversation is becoming a more discussed topic that ourselves as well bring to the table much more frequently now because we're seeing that it's an important trend.
As you were saying, it's a critical channel to engage with customers and drive conversion. So before we dig into what exactly and how you guys work together, Ricardo, can you give us an overview of the major trends today?
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically to the messaging side, there are two major trends that we're observing with messaging. The first one is related more to consumer behavior. And so how people are sort of engaging with each other and with businesses. The most important point here is that expectations have changed because people change the way they communicate between themselves. The mediums change over centuries. And today messaging is a very prominent medium that people use mainly between themselves and now also with businesses. And the expectations have changed in the way also they expect really to engage with businesses. They expect answers in a very short amount of time. Myself as well was the other day messaging my insurance to get a renewal quote. They didn't respond me for 3 days. I was thinking about dropping them. And then, obviously, there is also an important aspect, which is the experience side, which is becoming more and more important because people are with brands easy come, easy go. They can really find the same product elsewhere, and the experience, and we saw it with the speaker this morning with Ben Hughes, that actually the experience is becoming more important than the product or the service itself. So on the behavioral side, there are big important shifts. Messaging is obviously growing massively. We just recently announced the latest numbers at F8. And particularly a number I want to highlight. Obviously, on our side, we have more than 1.5 billion people using each platform, so both Messenger and WhatsApp. But another important aspect is how the conversation between people and businesses has been growing. We heard from LOD that they started in 2017 with SNCF, and in that moment there were roughly 2 billion messages between people and businesses. Those 2 billion became 10 last year, and today we just announced 20 billion messages every month between people and businesses. So the growth is really exponential right now because people are getting used now to talk to brands directly via messaging rather than taking their phones or sending an email.
Jendrik, with Spectrum, you published a very interesting study recently on these trends as well, and how to drive conversion through Facebook. How does these trends resonate with the findings of the study?
So there is a number out from Facebook. Actually, they published a recent study that when people actually reach out to a brand, to a company, that 75% of them actually have some kind of buying or, I don't know, conversion intent. So we figured, okay, is that actually true? So can we validate that? So we reached out to actually 250 biggest Facebook brands and direct-to-consumer brands in the US. I think they totaled at around 3 billion likes. So that is huge, right? That is people who are like on top of everybody's kind of mind, right? When you think about Facebook brands and that thing. And what we found was astonishing. So what we tracked was basically we reached out to them with some kind of transaction-related request. And then we tracked the time it took them to respond. And we actually tracked if they are able to understand our transaction-based request, right? And the first thing we have to note is that 50% of the customers, of the companies, didn't respond within 2 days. And 45% not even within 5 days. So this is huge, right? They have this channel open, they just don't respond. And even further, when we looked at how many can actually handle that transaction-based request, no matter if it's automized or like manual, it's only at 8%. So of that total audience, like they leaving money on the table. And I think I agree with Ricardo on that. There is a huge trend emerging, but there is so much that is not taken care of and people actually leaving money on the table. And I think this is something that we're really happy to actually tap into that and like maybe go into a bit more detail in a second, but this was huge for us, right? There is so much potential there.
So actually, Mark, how did you avoid leaving money on the table working with these guys?
Yeah, so what was it, in October last year, Facebook approached us and said, hey, look at the Lego case study, because Lego, they deployed a really good chatbot, a gifting bot, and it immediately appealed to me. It's like, yeah, we could do something with it, and also the ease of the integration. I think we got the pitch in October, and within 4 or 5 weeks, we had a running bot. We're a fairly small company. We don't have a lot of tech. So if we can do it, I think anyone can pull it off. Yeah, that took about 5 weeks, okay, all in all. So that's from pitch until creative process in terms of look and feel, what kind of language you're using, how long the whole conversation should be, because you don't want to have too many steps. You don't want to have to. You still want to make it relevant. So then you need to capture relevant information. But yeah, I think all in all it went fairly fast. In the meantime, we've been doing a lot of iterations because you need to look at the data, what's happening, where do people drop off, make slight adjustments. We've had some hit experiences, but also some misses, which happens. So we did the Valentine's campaign, and there we saw like a huge success, like because we run Messenger ads, okay, and there we saw a higher return on ad spend compared to other ads, which had the same creative.
What are the challenges you were trying to solve at the time? Because
for us, as a company, because we do a lot of ads on Instagram and Facebook. We have a fairly low price point, so it's very, people buy their socks immediately. It's an impulse decision. So from an ad perspective, we don't even need a bot in a way, because we can get those results in anyway. Because I mean, when you run a bot ad, you add 2 extra steps or 3 extra steps in order to get to your website. When you run an ad, you click on the ad, go to the website, and you convert. With a chatbot, you make it more complicated. Yet it worked for us. So you need to offer really relevant information. And I think that requires a lot of tweaking, but we got there. So with the Valentine's Day example, we really got there. It was like the return on ad spend was much higher. Recently, we launched a swimwear campaign with David Hasselhoff. A lot of videos, a lot of images, a lot of finger pointing, and cool guy, the Hoff, showing off his swimwear skills. But the return on ad spend is lower there. So you really need to add a relevant experience, because we're very margin and profit driven. But I think for so many other companies, it can be, you can have a very engaging experience.
Can you detail exactly the activation? So let's say I'm a consumer. What happens?
Yeah, so we show you an ad. For instance, for Valentine's Day, we show you an ad of, which is very appealing. It's like a sock with hearts on it and the Happy Socks logo, just the product we sell. And then you get into the whole flow where we ask you certain questions regarding your preference, like what kind of, who you're buying it for, and what kind of price range you're interested in. And then we offer the different products. It's all scripted, but I think it's still, you offer relevant information based on their intention.
What about the deploying process? What did you guys discuss during the workshops? And
I think the key is always to kind of match the voice of the brand, right? Voice more in a metaphorical sense, right? Because and I think that's the beauty about the Happy Socks case. It's highly visual, right? Even you have a text conversation, right? You can cater in the images, and it's so appealing, right? And you just walk through that. So we wanted to make sure to actually get that right. And I think what we see also across other customers that we have, that experience sells, right? The better the experience, the better actually the numbers. And you outperform other campaigns where you just link out to, I don't know, the web shop directly or things like that, because people like that engagement. The drop-off rates are much lower. So I think it's that notion of trying to match that, bring it in, and then make it as entertaining and as frictionless as possible. And I think, this was going by itself, right? You have a product that is low on like decision-making processes, right? You don't have to guide people through complex things. And I think not everybody is as happy as Mark is at the moment with that low customer acquisition cost, but I think for a lot of brands it's actually something that is troublesome, right? Because customer acquisition costs are increasing, like 50% over the last years. So you have to consider how you actually can make that sale even more for your own business. So I think this is something where you can like experiment with those kind of things, and it's interesting.
Ricardo, when a brand is trying to activate this type of experience, why is it crucial to choose platform partners to do so? Well,
platform partners like you guys, like Genric and Spectrum and many others, actually there are a few others in the room, I think they bring a lot of expertise related to different factors. First of all is the technology, to directly build on our stack and build a messaging sort of experience. That's the #1 step. But then there is a lot of expertise depending on the brand vertical, so whether it's travel or retail or auto, obviously you need to understand extremely well the industry to build the most relevant conversation to specific industry challenges. And so every player is really expert in those specific industries and the challenges that happen before selling or after selling. So pre-sales and post-sales are extremely important to understand based on indeed the partners and what they can bring to the table. I think there is another element also that is extremely important within the conversation sort of spectrum of things, and it's not just the technology, but it's the content. Designing conversation is building content for a new type of channel that works slightly differently compared to a banner or a website. A banner is a creative, a website is a showcase in some way that people navigate through. Conversation is something different because it's personal, it's direct, one-on-one, and also because it follows different logics. And so what partners bring to the table, which we provide best practices, but then you provide a close follow-up with clients on building that muscle of the art of conversation, and how actually do you build the most compelling conversation to then ultimately optimize it as well. And so the aspect of the art of conversation is, for me, one of the most important elements that partners often bring to the table.
What kind of other challenges your clients or prospects are facing at the moment, different than Happy Socks?
So it's more and more frequently we talk about pre-sales and specifically lead generation. And we created a lot of solutions for lead generation and to sort of directly qualify leads through multiple channels. Messaging is a bit different because messaging enables that lead generation element together with some sort of brand personalization and more emotional personal connection. So a case study or a brand that I saw doing something really well, I cannot nominate them because they don't like being in case studies, they don't do case studies, but they're a very fancy hairdryer brand. They do hoovers and hair dryers. You imagine who they are. And so their products are very, very pricey. They're very expensive. They have a very high price point, completely above the market. And so people don't actually feel very confident in buying those products straight away because they're not sure if they can spend or if it's right to spend all that amount of money straight on the product. They implemented messaging to, in some way, qualify the purchase and build confidence. And that's the characteristic of messaging, is that by that conversation, it's not just about lead generation, but it's also building the confidence in the customer and creating that connection so that when they get at the end of the flow, they understand the brand, they understand what the product is about, they understand if the product is for them because they answer specific questions that actually are related to them. And by giving these answers, the brand can guide them through the right product and making the right choice. And so with this brand, we actually saw an incredible lift in sales and return on ad spend because compared to ads that they were running on Facebook directly via Instagram or Facebook, because people, after going through that flow of the conversation, felt much more confident about making the purchase. So that's another area where we see a lot of value.
What about you?
Yeah, maybe you should build on that because I find this interesting. Because, like, you know, back in the day when social became huge, everybody was recommending people, okay, so when you build your presence, imagine it's in a bar situation, right? I'm next to Mark, he ordered his drink, I just sit next to him. We get into chatting. Then the first thing I'm saying is not, hey, do you want to buy a car from me? I maybe want to get to know him, right? I want to understand that he has 2 children and actually wants to thinking about that, or maybe even not even that. So at some point, he remembers me and thinks, hey, that guy that I met in the bar, that weird one, but he has nice cars, so maybe I should talk him up. And I think the same is true for messaging, and even more so. And I think to second that, what Ricardo just said is a matter of like building that trust, right? If you have customers coming to your store, you don't scream at them, hey, give me your money. This is my product. It's people that are just coming in, they're browsing. They want to check out stuff. So they want to understand what are the features, what is the difference between this and that product. And at some point, when they are ready to buy, they will tell you. But you may have to make sure that you actually help that intention of helping them. And I think then you go full circle. And I think that's fascinating about that conversational space is that you can apply everything that we learn from human interactions and how offline stores work into the online world. Because the same is true there. You just enable just your brand to talk to every one of your customers, one-to-one, right? Yeah. This is the beauty of that, but you should leverage that. It's not one-to-many, right? We just saw it this morning. I'm not screaming at them, talk to them.
We were discussing the latest announcement at the A8 a couple of weeks ago. Mark Zuckerberg actually announced the future is private. What does it mean for marketers?
Yeah, I think the feed is going to decrease in priority in terms of reach, right? We could see that in the past years, that the organic reach decreased and so on, right? People shifting their attention towards different means, right? They like to interact on conversations, and so on. They go to stories, and there's different types of features where you can actually capture the attention. And what is crucial is actually, I think, the space is limited in messaging. I just have my most recent friends, and they put a lot of trust in me that I appear among them. So I actually have to make sure that I value that and that I start building on that. Because the moment is actually going to be too expensive for me to actually reach my audience on the other channels, it's too late, because my competitors already moved to that channel. They already leveraged that conversation. And I think that is also very interesting to see. It's not a one-off thing, right? I can have a very nice campaign. I can win myself a Cannes Lion on that, right? It's nice, I put it on my shelf and it's set it and forget it. But the audience I've built is still there. I established that trust. I established that relationship of one-to-one. Why don't I use that? And I think that is the crucial part about that overall trend emerging, is that people need to find ways how they can build a long-term relationship with their client on that platform.
Mark, how is it perceived from your standpoint? The future is private.
Yeah, I think there's multiple pillars to that one, but I think if you look at private conversations, I think for brands it will be more important to have reach out individual on an individual level, so really one-to-one discussions. So in our case, I mean, we run a lot of ads, but they're not catered to one specific person. I mean, in newsletters you might have automation, but that's also not super personalized. I think within Messenger you can really cater to that individual and learn from them. So within the team we've been brainstorming a little bit. I think it will be very interesting to run, for instance, surveys. Once you establish a conversation, like post-purchase surveys, or what style do you like most? Like from a product design, you can ask your most loyal customers for input. Like which style do you like most and why? I think that will be super interesting.
If we talk about the impact and the results of the activation you guys worked on together, what did surprise you the most?
I think the whole ease of integration, the fact that it outperforms certain other ad formats. That was really.
So what exactly do you measure? How do you measure the success of it?
We measure it as other ads. So in that case, it's just we just add. It's an additional ad format, because at HappySock we constantly try to improve our creatives and try to be where the users are, and try to constantly reiterate whatever we do and what is working, but also try new ad formats. And we consider this as an ad format, and we treat it as such. So we just take it into the whole rotation of all the other ads, give it the same exposure, and let the best performing ad show up most.
So if I understood correctly, the budget that you allocate to the customer experience basically is coming from an acquisition budget?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say it's not a customer experience. Yeah, it's customer experience, but I think customer experience is more troubleshooting, and this is more an acquisition channel, communication channel.
Okay. To maybe Ricardo and Jendrik, how does it change compared to other mediums or platforms, this type of activation?
Well, compared to other platforms, it's a different approach, because people often take conversation and messaging as a new sort of creative within their marketing plan often. Well, conversation and messaging, actually, it's a channel. It's like a website. It's like another surface. And it's a channel that needs nurturing. As Mark was explaining, it starts from a very small experiment and something small. Actually, we heard the same from advice from WSNCF. It starts with a small, probably activation and use case, but then in reality it applies to multiple use cases of the company, and it needs sort of to find its own specific way and formula for the company, as a website does. Everybody optimizes websites, everybody optimizes advertising and creatives, and we saw in the last few years how also a lot of technologies on optimizing ads emerged. It's the same for marketing messaging. It requires a constant optimization to understand the flows, what works, what doesn't work, to on one side, create some sort of a brand connection that messaging is capable of, and so creating that sort of confidence and trust that other channels don't offer anymore. B, also, it's pushing people from the interest and discovery to the action, so to buying some socks, buying a hair dryer with more confidence that they're buying the right gift, for example.
Yes. So, if we talk about a chatbot, what is eased if we stand from a customer care perspective by chatbot? What kind of friction do you ease?
I think we do mainly marketing, I have to say that. So I think there's a lot of other great players out there who do care cases. But generally speaking, I think you have a couple of factors that make this channel super effectively. You have thread persistence. What that means is basically if I reach out to someone on phone, right, I get this agent on the line, I'm explaining my problem, I'm giving my number, like, I don't know, my client credentials or whatever, and he's not able to help me. Or he might be, but he forgets to follow up. So I need to call him up again. I'm in the line for 15 minutes, right? And then I have to give my number again. I have to describe my problem because they didn't put it in their Salesforce, so that information is lost. And I think that's the beauty about that channel. I'm having that persistent, having all the information at one place. And that, I think, eases the thing. In addition to that, you can combine automated and manual experiences, right? Where you can pre-qualify that. And it's instantaneous. I can reach out there. I don't have to wait 3 days until my insurance company gets back to me. They can offer me that. And I think that's the beauty of that.
We were discussing in the backstage how it could be complicated for big organizations to deploy this kind of project because it does involve different departments in the company. How did you manage to handle it from a brand perspective and deploy it so fast?
Yeah, because we consider it as an ad, so it's mostly in the online marketing team, and we had some input from the creative team. So initially we started with a gifting emoji, like a happy socks emoji with a smile and a headset. So we had some input there, and then you need a copywriter. But apart from that, you don't need that many departments to be involved.
Okay, and how does it integrate with your whole ecosystem? You were mentioning other platforms that you're using in customer care. Does it integrate?
Yeah, so not yet. So we're thinking about integrating it, because I think it could add a lot of value to your website as well. Just to have a playful approach.
Maybe just one comment on that. Is it odd? Yeah. Okay, just to comment on that, I think what is critical about that is chatbots are not a tech topic. Weird enough, right? This is automated thing, there's AI involved, so we think about this as a tech problem, but actually it's a marketing problem or as a care problem. The customer doesn't care about the underlying tech. It just has run, right? And then it's the experience. And I think that is critical about that.
Thanks. Beyond data and actually results, can you share with us, each of you, an interesting or innovative case study or activation you have deployed?
Yeah, I mean, I have plenty. If you want, I can stay here for hours telling you a lot of examples. I think we did a very strong one with Victoria Beckham in September. I hope there are fans of the Spice Girls, but it wasn't about her music, it was about her clothing collection, because she has a brand and it was her 10-year anniversary. So she launched a chatbot as a launch moment of her broad 360 campaign. And what was interesting is, so first of all, how quickly people picked up on talking to her and how much time they spent browsing the content that was pushed through notifications of when the runway was happening, when the live stream was happening, when she released her full collection of 10 items that people could buy immediately from her store. But something also that was interesting is, despite people acknowledging it was a chatbot, they were sending her messages directly by writing, which we had implemented with some natural language processing. We didn't do anything too complicated, but people were anyway chatting. They knew they were chatting with a chatbot, but they were sending mostly messages of love for her and her brand and herself. And that's very interesting, because indeed it's a sort of it's a demonstration of the emotional connection that people have for the brand and herself. A bit more detached from a celebrity, there is one of the case studies that actually stays close to my heart, is the one of the Alcoholics Anonymous in Latin America, which now they're expanding through their organization in other countries in the world, including in Europe. They did a lot of research to understand all the different problems that people have with alcohol, and what is the journey for them to ultimately get some help. And so they took that data and they actually did a study to understand ultimately that people were afraid of coming out with this problem and finding help. So they created a chatbot, which they called the Anonymous Friend, that was asking people that needed help the right questions, making people acknowledge that that was a chatbot, so there wasn't a person listening and judging them. And it made people much more comfortable to talk because they could talk in their own moment, whenever they felt comfortable, whenever they felt secure in their space, and then keep up the conversation whenever they wanted because it was on their phone, in their app. And it increased the number of people that started to then go to the helping groups because they'd gone through a journey that basically was telling them and giving them advice to make them understand if they really had a problem or not. So the fact of the power of the conversation is demonstrated clearly there, where actually an automated experience still can have a closer connection and build more confidence compared to what a human with maybe a bias could do.
Especially because the bot is not judging, right? Because we had the same thing. We have an experience with HRA Pharma, which is a Paris-based platform, like company who's building actually the morning after pill. And so we deployed that chatbot and actually allows young girls to figure out if they're in need of that. And they go through a guided journey, and basically the bot asks what happened. And it's not judging, it's not the parents, it's not embarrassing to tell them what happened. And then guides them through the whole process of, hey, you might see a doctor, or just go to the pharmacy, or good, you're fine. And I think this is crucial, where actually a bot can help ease that tension of that situation.
If you had advice to give to the brands in the audience before deploying such a conversational strategy, what would they be?
Make sure you know what you're optimizing for, so know your conversion goal.
Okay. Straightforward.
I would say just try it. Just give it a try, and along the way you'll find out what the metrics do for you and what you can get out of it. But just try it, because I think the investment is very minimal.
Okay.
I have two advice, actually. I'm going to steal it from there. The first one is, don't start if you don't know the use case. Really lock the use case. It can be a small one, but know why you're building a chatbot, because there are many brands that started saying, oh yeah, we need to be present, let's build something, let's put our products there, without knowing what they're measuring, why they're doing it, who they're targeting, what's the audience they're speaking to. And that didn't work. And there is an important graveyard of chatbots, because they were built actually with no plan in mind. So having a use case and a strategy first, and understanding what's the scenario you're building for, it's the best starting point before actually thinking, okay, then what's the conversation is about. And my second advice is, be customer-centric and customer-obsessed. It's the least you can do to think about being where people are today. If people are using messaging between themselves, it's because they love connecting in that way today. In the future, it might be different. In the future, we might do this conference in VR, and then it's about VR maybe. But today, conversation is really one of the most adopted mediums through messaging. And so being there where people are, it's the least that brands can do today.
Yes. Do you see any other trend of future? What is the future of communication, according to you? Tricky one.
I think it's just going to continue.
Yeah.
I think it's virtually impossible at this point in time to actually have a rich one-to-one conversation with your customer. But I think we're getting there, right? You can deploy different means of actually making that easier. You can have a scripted journey. You can add, we even had very dynamic content actually with that, with the Happy Socks case. Because we've been actually tracking what the people wanted and then been only catering that. And you can take that to the extreme. We had that before with the Vu and Tu example, right? You can personalize that even further, and that's not even deploying AI on that. So I think eventually that is the trend which is emerging, having that rich conversation.
What about human? We're talking a lot about chatbots.
I think there are only a certain point where an automated experience can handle. And I think it needs to have some coexistence with the human agent. And I think we need to deploy hybrid solutions on that, right? I can find a way where I can easily help you, right? You want to know when the store is opened? I can give you that. You don't need to call up someone. But at some point, I actually want someone to take attention, and I want to hand this over. And I think what we should look into is like those hybrid solutions of both conversion and care.
Okay. What do you think about that, Mark?
Yeah, I think they can coexist. I think you need to have the human element, but also you can automate a lot of processes. So I think that goes hand in hand.
Do you plan to do this at Happy Socks? Or?
Not in the near future, but I will fight for that case. Yeah.
Okay. One last word you want to share? Yeah?
Yeah, I think, well, on this topic, the hybrid in some way is the future, and understanding how AI can solve the top 100 problems, or even top 10 would be already a good start that people have with your brand. And so have automation on that, and then the human element adding value. There are already some companies that do that very well, like take KLM. KLM, they became a pro on that because they've been working for 3 years in understanding what are the most common problems and automated everything for that. But then the human element actually adds value when it's a specific situation that a passenger has. And indeed, natural language processing and AI, that's in my opinion an area where we still have to make some progress in learning exactly what are the formulas that work, and then implementing that technology through conversation, through voice at some point, and having it even smarter, obviously. And then continuing that sort of pursuit of closing the gap and closing the distance between people, between themselves and people and brands.
Okay. So if I sum up very quickly what we've been discussing today, so basically, as you were saying, is the least you can do, and you have to try it. Anything else you want to add to conclude this session?
I think it goes full circle. I mean, the experience is key. And if I don't have the human agent who has to rush through all the tickets he has to answer, but I can actually take the time, dedicate that to your case, that's one way of delight the customer. It's also another way to actually offer him a very nice guided journey and actually give him the socks for the loved one he's looking for. And I think that's amazing. And I think that is actually a way of putting the experience in the center.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.